All right, folks. For those who have just tuned in, you're watching or listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. In a few minutes, our guest Harry will be joining us, Guyanese born, who's now an author. And so, obviously, we'll take some time to kind of dive into, his early years, meaning, his journey growing up in Guyana, get to know a little bit about his migration to the USA, and then we will dive into the book aspect of things, meaning that the time he took to put together a beautiful book. We want to hear from him, so I don't want to kind of share any of that because he's going to join us in a few minutes. I'm just waiting on him to kind of give me the okay to bring him back in. We tested our song and everything else, and everything is good to go on his end, which is awesome. But in the meantime, I'm just playing some music so you can kind of enjoy until he joins us here. So that's Harry. Again, he's born a Burbishan to be more specific. So we hope that you can join us. I hope that you can stay with us so that we can get to know more about Harry and learn a lot from him. So we hope that you can stay with us.
मैंने भी देखने की हद वो भी तस्वीर से बाहर निकली क्यों तुम मैनू छड़ गई है अदिल तो कट गई है वफा भी न कर पाई ये जो तू कर गई है दिल मेरा हले भी तेनू चाहता है तेरा हो के रहना चाहता है एक बार आ जा मेरे को तेनू रज रज प्यार करा बस एक बार रह जा मेरे को तेनू सजदा मैं रोज करा मैं देखा तेरी फोटो सौ सौ बार कुड़े मैं देखा तेरी फोटो सौ सौ बार कुड़े कितने तेनू प्यार सुने बिच सौ सौ बार कुड़े कितने तेनू प्यार सुने बिच सौ सौ बार कुड़े सुपने दी आगी जानी है नींद उड़ा के जानी है
All right, folks. So thanks again for joining us. So I get the okay from Harry to bring him in here. So I'm going to bring him in and we're going to uh, get started here, which is awesome. Yeah, so while he's making his way, uh, I just want to remind you that you're watching and listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. This is a rebranding from my end. So here he is. How are you doing, Harry?
I'm doing great.
Good. It's hard to say Harry because we grew up, saying Uncle Harry and we use the word uncle. But after all of these years, I guess we are a little bit adapted to the
Well,
way we do things here. But thank you for joining us again here. I'm glad that you are here. Are you okay there? Are you all set on your end?
well, I'm trying to set up my thing here.
Good. Okay. No worries. So you just give me the okay there. When you're good to go, give me the thumbs up. To those of you, we are going to take the opportunity to get to know Uncle Harry, um, get to know his journey migrating, all the way from Guyana. And speaking of migration and all of these types of things, I think it is important for us to have a little bit of a chat along that line based on what's happening in the world right now as we speak. I think that's important. Obviously, myself, I migrated from Burpees in Guyana to Canada here and had a really good journey, experience, lots of great opportunities here in Canada. But obviously, the rules and regulations a little bit different here. All right. So when you're comfy there, you just let me know. You're all good to
Yes.
go? Awesome. So first of all, thank you for joining me again. So what we are going to do before we get into the book and all of that, um, take me back to your early childhood, growing up in Burpees, Guyana. as far as you can remember. So whether that be nursery school, whether that be the village, whether that be primary school, take us back, to your early childhood, and then we'll kind of progress from there. Take it away.
Well, to begin, in Guyana during that time, when I was a little boy, there wasn't any nursery school or anything like that. You go first, you start at primary school.
Mm-hmm.
You start in actually grade 1, and you work out your way up from there to 6th standard. I grew up in the village of Irish. I actually spent most of my early life back in Irish. During that period, it was a tough life to begin with. But before I go into that, I'll take you a little bit about the school. I attended Irish Congregational School, which was at that time run by the church, the Congregational Church, and it was administered by the British government at that time because it was under the British rule.
Mm-hmm.
All the curriculum there was British. We sang the British national anthem, and most of the curriculum are from the British era. Later on, that school has been changed from Irish Congregational to Irish Primary School. Then it was changed to, I think now, Irish School.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, after, I'll tell you something, a little bit about myself now. After I graduated from primary school, I actually passed the in school leaving examination. At that time, that was a big thing,
mm-hmm.
to pass that examination. And that's when you pass that examination, you're on the trend to go to high school. But growing up in a large family, it was a tough thing. Financially, you got to pay for high school. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very hard for me to get the funds
mm-hmm.
to go to high school, because I grew up in a family of 13.
Oh, wow.
And my father was the only breadwinner at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a brother already in high school. So at first, my father didn't want to send me because he said, he cannot afford it. I tried to talk to him. I said, we were doing a lot of farming and things like that, a lot of cattle. And that's what I used to take care after I finished school. So I said, look, what we can do, we can get some income from the farming. Like, we sell the produce, and we can get income from that to pay for my school fees. He buy into it. So I end up enrolling in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The first high school I went to is a high school run by a guy named Joseph Gopal. It's called, the high school was Guyana Educational Institute. It was actually located in Albion. I attended that school until I was in the 4th form. Then financially that school go bankrupt. So then I end up in Quarantine Comprehensive. At that time it just opened at the Port Morant accounting office. They took that building and they make it into high school, and it was run, and the principal there was Rougenat. So I started there after that school was closed. So I actually wrote my College of Preceptors examination, which I had enrolled in the College of the school that was run by Gopal. And I wrote it while I was in Counting Comprehensive. And there I actually obtained 8 subjects in that. And later on, I took the general certificate examination, which I passed with 5 subjects. The thing is, after I graduated, it was tough getting a job now. At that time, corruption was on. You have to know somebody, or you have to pass a bribe. So my philosophy, I always get this from a young boy. I will never pay a bribe for anything. I want to get a job through my experience and my qualification. So I chose not to pay a bribe. I would have get into the Albion accounting office if I had paid $100. But I said no. So what I did, I actually end up going and the lowest job, which is cane cutting. High school graduate, go and cut cane. You know, I started there. While I was doing farming with my parents and things like that, we had, you know, but that's where I started in the estate, cane cutting. It was tough as a young schoolboy, graduated from high school, you know, and that time you don't wear a shoe and cut the cane. He's barefoot.
Yeah.
So, you know, my foot was very soft going to school where I used to wear shoes and things like that, but you couldn't do it in the cane fields. But anyway, after I started there, I worked my way up very quickly from different part of the industry to burning cane trash, to planting cane, to fertilization. I even work in the factory. Then some position was opened for checker boy, which is like kind of an accounting job, but you got to be in the cane field, checking the cane cutter and enter their wages for the day. So I applied for that. There were actually 4 vacancies. So I applied for that, and I was called in for an interview. I went there, and through my experience in all the different aspects of the industry and my qualification, I was hired. But afterward, one of my co-workers, he told me that, you know what, 3 of us actually give money to get this job. You were the lucky one that didn't pay a cent and you get that job. So I worked there, working in the cane field for checking cane cutters for quite a few years. Then after the dictatorship government come into existence, you know who I'm talking about, they started to recruit people from the party into high position within the estate. So people who don't know nothing came, and they were our bosses. We have to do their job as well as our job. And this was within the entire sugar estate. They were saying that square pegs in round holes throughout the estate. So I decided, I said, you know, I don't want my kids to grow up in this type of condition here. So that's when I applied for my visa in the United States. And I actually get through. And we moved to the United States.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to hold you up there because we are moving into a nice direction here. So just hold up there so you can take a break. So my dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you are watching and listening, you're watching and listening the Dr. Narine Dat Show, and our guest today is Uncle Harry. A Guyanese-born, verb is to be very specific. We're here to promote his book, but we are going to get into that in a few minutes. I just also want to remind folks that here on the Dr. Narine Dat Show, this is a safe space for positive energy only. So for those of you who may have missed what I said earlier, if you're looking for a space to vent out any sort of negativity, this is not the space for it. You can switch and go elsewhere. We're going to keep this as a safe space for positive energy only, nothing more than that. And so if I wasn't clear earlier, hopefully people are clear now. And so a lot of people, they migrate, and I remember when I realized that I'm going to have the opportunity to come to Canada. It was such of a beautiful thing. So take me back to that whole journey when you have made that decision, right? You have made the decision to leave, your birth country, right? Myself included, and many people who are watching. You've left all of that behind to go to the States, to be specific. Tell me a little bit about that journey. What was the journey like? Meaning that once you get there, not everything in details per se, only things that you're comfortable sharing. But what was the journey like when you first moved? Because that's quite a few years ago, right?
Yes, I came in the 70s.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
I
So
came in the 70s. So it's and everything that I'm saying here is in my new book. It's actually an autobiography that tells you about my life, and I go. It's in details in my book. I just touch on the heading of each one of my chapter here. After I came to the United States, I was one of the lucky guy. At that time, it was very easy getting a job. So I end up working in a computer company, starting with a computer company called Digital Equipment Corporation, work in the actually parts room. So this company, this is where I had my break. They actually paid for you to go to school, advance yourself in the computer business, and they pay you your salary while you're going to school. So that was a big break I had here. I worked, I go to school, I start to get a lot of different aspects of the computer field, certificates, training, and I moved up the ladder very quickly into that industry also. I moved from a work coordinator, then a supervisor, then a manager. So because I had that idea in me that I want to advance myself. I have the opportunity to advance myself in the United States, and I took advantage of it. I became a manager. Then we merged with Compaq. Digital Equipment Corporation merged with Compaq. I retained my position as a manager. I was responsible for all the merging of the two companies. I worked there for a couple of years, and then we merged with HP. It became Compaq HP. I become a business analyst, a higher position than the manager position, in charge of the areas in Northeast. I worked there until my office, let me backtrack a little bit. My office was right beside the World Trade Center at the One Liberty Plaza, the building adjacent to. So when the World Trade Center disaster happened, I was there. I actually was a few minutes late, or else I would have been under that building of the World Trade Center. Thank God I was a couple minutes late. But we were in front of the building when the disaster happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I witnessed everything. We had to run from there and run to Midtown. We had other offices in Midtown at Two Penn Plaza. So we ran from there. We stood in the street watching at the building when it engulfed into flame, the first one. And then the second building was hit later on.
So hold on. You are doing good, but I'm gonna have to pause you there for a second. This is amazing information. I want to before we get into more details about other stuff and what you're sharing in your book and so forth. When you came here, what was the neighborhood like? For example, like when I visit, New York and the Liberty area and so forth, I see to be very diverse. We have a mixture of people. We have obviously like the Indian from India. We have the Sikh. We have, people from Jamaica. You name it. We have it. We have it all, so to speak. Or you folks have it all. What was it like when you came in terms of the neighborhood and the demographic in terms of people?
Yes, it's good that you asked that question. Mm-hmm. And that will take me back to when I came. When we left Guyana, I'll go back a little bit. Mm-hmm. We were only allowed 25 US. And you have to go to the Bank of Guyana to have the authorization, and they stamp that on your passport. So when you come to the airport, they actually checked it to make sure that you have not more than $25. So I end up with $25 in the United States, and, you start to work and start to the first job, the first time you start, your salary is not that great. You have to rent an apartment. I end up in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. I end up in the Bronx, and it's a mixed neighborhood at that time. It has some Guyanese, it has some Spanish, it has some Indian, and there's some Italian people in that block. It was a nice block. It was a nice mixed block. But later on, it started to get a little bit deteriorating. A couple of crimes started and things like that in the block. I was actually mugged one day coming down the stairs to go to work. And, I was mugged by two guys, they put a knife in my throat. So after about, I was in the Bronx about 14 years. So I said, it's time to move from here. I don't want to, for my kids and us to go through that. That's when I decided, and I bought a house in Queens Village. It's a nice neighborhood, quiet. It's a village type of neighborhood. And, the only thing is to get to work was a little bit more harder. You got to travel with a bus and train and things like that. But I found the ways of working around that later on to take the Long Island Railroad. Anyway, I lived there quite a few years. It was nice. But then after the World Trade Center, I go back to the World Trade Center now. After the World Trade Center disaster, our building was all shattered. It was a glass building, and it was all shattered. So I had the opportunity to go back there to retrieve some of my personal documents in that building. We had security had to take us in. We had to walk up those stairs. It was on the 27th floor. My office was on the 27th floor, adjacent to World Trade Center. So when I walked up, I walked up there. Yeah, obviously you have to wear a mask because the debris was still, smoke was coming out and things like that. When I reached to my floor, to my office, I stood there. There wasn't any wall. This was all, you have those beams and things like that. So I was looking at the smoke coming out. Still, you had smoke coming out there, and there was scent. You couldn't smell that scent. Even the mask, you could smell some of that scent that is coming through there. You know, and that thing really traumatized me. So what I did, I was at that time, I worked over 20 years, about 25 years in the computer industry. I was entitled for full retirement. If you work 20 years and above, the company policy, you can take your retirement and receive full benefit and they carry you and your spouse medical for life. So I said, look, you know, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire. So what I did, I retired. And when I retired, I had one passion when I was growing up as a young boy. When I was growing up as a young boy, I always fascinated by medicine. You know, I always fascinated by that. So what I did, I enrolled in medical school. Yeah, I enrolled in medical school. First, I took the medical billing and coding. Then I advanced myself to medical assistant. After I graduated from there, I took a job in North Shore Health System. It's like 8 hospitals, was owned by North Shore Long Island Jewish Hospital. It's in Long Island. So I worked there for a couple of years. Then I end up getting a heart attack, not at the workplace. One day I was getting ready to go to work and I wasn't feeling too well, and I end up in the hospital, right in North Shore Hospital. Doctors were waiting for me there anyway after I called them. So they took care of it. And from then I decided, you know what? I am going to retire completely. So I just bought a house in Florida and moved. And there are other factors too, because New York, when you started to get old, it's very hectic. You know, very, very hectic to grow up in that environment. The snow started to bother me, you know. So I said, I'm going to a warmer climate. I had a choice.
So I'll pause you there. You're doing really well, by the way. You're doing awesome. But I also want to be mindful and kind of give you a little bit of a break as well too. So just hang in there. We're going to continue our interview, obviously. Let me take the opportunity to say hello to a few people here. I want to give a special hello to Leon. Thank you so much for taking a sneak peek. Thank you so much for all the great work you do on your end there. So that's awesome. I want to give a special hello to Auntie Berlin as well too. That's the mom of Leon. Thank you so much for taking this sneak peek. We appreciate having you here. Alvin Tulsi, we very much appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much. I want to give a special hello. I'm a big fan of Ruplal Gildari, a very talented singer out of Trinidad and Tobago. He has won the Chutney title many, many times, and I believe that's coming up soon as well too. Thank you so much. We've had him in. We have had him on our previous show. Let's Chit Chat with Narine. That's gone. That's done. We are rebranding Rubal. If you're wondering what we're doing here, and now we have the Dr. Narine Dat Show. Obviously, there are repeats, you know, on YouTube and 102.7 CKSM. 102.6 CKMS FM. And the reason for that is because we started our journey over 2 decades ago there. So we do not want to cross the bridge we cross, right? So we continue to maintain that relationship with that mainstream radio station. What I also want to do, I want to feature a copyright-free song just for a few minutes. just so that we take a quick break here. And when we come back, Harry, Uncle Harry, think of this as well too. I want to know if you had any sort of cultural shock, when you came to us. Don't answer me now. You are going to answer me after we come back from the break. I want you to think of any cultural shock that you can think of, right? Because you are leaving Berbice, and obviously Berbice is just one straight road from Amsterdam to Skellen, right? And here you come, in a very big city, millions of people, all of that. I want you to talk about that cultural shock when you come back. But for now, enjoy this beautiful little tune we have here for you. And then we're going to continue our interview with Uncle Harry. You're watching and listening to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. We'll talk to you soon. All right, so I'm just going to pause that so we can continue with the interview. So for those of you who have just joined us, you're watching and listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. We are rebranding. I keep saying this so that people know, because people know of us, through the Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat Show and also the Caribbean Spice Radio Show. By the way, the Caribbean Spice continues on 102.7 CKMS FM. So we kind of keep it that way. We're not bringing that on any sort of live stream. That's because of people's requests, but we are rebranding, with a new show, the Dr. Narine Dat Show. And today, our guest is Uncle Harry, a Guyanese born and raised in Berbice, Guyana. So, Uncle Harry, we kind of left off where I kind of asked you to think of the cultural shock. And so, for example, when I came to this country here, it was a huge cultural shock for me, by the way, because everybody was white. Everybody was white. And so I came and I attended, high school, and it was different for me, like that huge cultural shock. I want to hear from you though. What was the cultural shock like for you, or did you just feel as if you were able to kind of integrate fairly okay?
It was, there was a lot of cultural shock. I mean, growing up in Berbice, it's a countryside.
Mm-hmm.
And during our time, you hardly go to Georgetown or the city, because it's, you don't have anything to do there. Once in a while you go to the city for different types of things, but not too many times. You grew up in that countryside boy. You came to United States, which is fast-paced.
Mm-hmm.
The people are totally different. You grew up into an environment where you have to deal with a lot of different other races, and they have different attitude, the way they speak, the way they interact with people. So there are quite a few things that you have to get adjusted to. Thank God I managed to overcome all of that. Take, for instance, you travel in the train, you know, you see a boy and a girl kissing there, and you looked at them, you know, they feel annoyed because that's the way of the culture going on. And you growing up in a countryside, you know, you're not accustomed to things like that. So these are some of the things that you got to get adjusted, you know, like when you're teasing somebody, you know, we used to like tease somebody, you take out your tongue and tease them, wobble your tongue and things. You cannot do that, especially with you know, we didn't know about the different type of people with different way they act. So it was totally different. You got to learn a lot of different things. So I try to overcome that, because within my company that I was working with, I normally say it's an international company. It had people from all parts of the world. And I had to deal with all the different cultures and different, you know, people have different attitudes. You got to learn of each country, the way these people speak. Sometimes you know, take for instance, some country I wouldn't mention, people have a loud voice when they talk. You got to get accustomed to all of that. But thank God I tried and I managed to get that. We weren't growing up with gays and lesbians in Guyana. You hardly hear, but even if there were gays and lesbians, they don't come out. But over here, it's, you know, people are free. They talk about it. And in fact, one of my best friends was a gay guy. And he used to tell me about his life. And I was shocked, because his life with his mate, another guy, is just like when we fall in love. And he gave me stories of, you know, their love affairs. So you learn a lot of different things here, you know, and you get accustomed to it.
Well, thank you for that. So obviously things have changed over the years, right? Things have changed. There's no question about that. Speaking of change and the things that you share, what advice do you have for, let's say, the younger folks? There's still people all over the world, right? People all over the world still, you know, they still want, you know, better life, and they're looking, you know, people still move and migrate, all of that, not uncommon. Right? And what advice do you have for folks who, you know, come into this country most recently? What advice do you have for them? I'm not talking about legal advice here per se, but you know, well, I'm going to give you a good example. So let's say somebody, you know, who come here very recently, they wouldn't necessarily be in the same place as somebody who's been here for 40 years, somebody who's already established. You know, like yourself, for example, established in the sense that you already had a career. You know, you're kind of retired, you're kind of set, you're enjoying your life now in that sense, all of that, right? And some people who are coming now, they're just starting from scratch. What advice do you have for them? Because at the end of the day, you know, any kind of advice you have, you know, in terms of who've been there, done that, can be very, very helpful for newer folks.
Yes, I mean, unlike our days, as you mentioned just now, it was very easy to leave a job and get another job. Now it's very tough getting a job. And even when you get a job, you know, the rent and things like that are very expensive. One salary, you can hardly make it. So you got to be prepared for all of that. It's very hard to save as we were before. So these are some of the things you got to be prepared with. especially now with everything that's going on with the new administration. I wouldn't advise people. I let them rethink thoroughly before. Guyana is very good. Guyana is very good now. I'll tell you that. You have a lot of benefits, and a lot of Guyanese may end up back going to Guyana rather than spend time over here. It's hard. It's tough now. Thank God I'm retired and I went. I don't have to go through that. But I will advise people to think thoroughly before you leave. If you want a career, yes, you have different type of career you can have here, but you gotta prepare to sacrifice yourself.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that advice, by the way. At the end of the day, these places like, United States and Canada and so forth, they are developed countries. I know there are lots of issues here and there, and politics is a whole different thing. Guyana, as much as Guyana has improved over the years, and I hope nobody send me emails afterward here. I'm just speaking. I'm a Guyanese, by the way. As much as Guyana has improved and so forth, Guyana is still a developing country, right? So if people have the passion, motivation of wanting the best for themselves, you really have to have a vision for yourself. You have to have a plan in place, and you really cannot lay back. You have to keep moving, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a plan in place and vision for yourself, you're really not going to get anywhere. But thank you so much for that advice. So what we're going to do, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to have a little bit of a music break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the book. And I believe it looks like we have lost him as well too. And so which means it's a perfect time for that break. So we're going to play a little bit of music for a few minutes. And when we come back, we will dive into the book that Uncle Harry has written, the reason why he wrote it, and the message he wants to kind of share with the public. And again, if you happen to just tune in here, you're watching or listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show, and it is our pleasure to have you join us. This is a safe space for positive energy only. We sometimes, we have lots going on in life, and we're looking for an opportunity just to vent out and so forth, just to get things out. This is not a place for it. So I just thought I'd mention that. So we are going to play this quick song here, and then we're going to continue with the interview with Uncle Harry. Hopefully he doesn't have any issue joining us back again.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Right. So, my dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who have just tuned in, you're watching or listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. We are joined by Uncle Harry. He's here to promote his book, but obviously we took some time to get to know him a little bit, to understand his journey in life, and he has done a really good job sharing that with us. So, thank you so much, Uncle Harry, for taking time to do that. I know um, when we spoke, we said that, you probably wouldn't need, more than an hour for the show, but we set it up in a way that we can
2 hours
maximize
now.
your time here. We set it up in a way where we can maximize your time. So what we're going to do, we're going to dive into that. So obviously, you took some time, you put together your thoughts. Obviously, you have the time for it as well too, because you are retired now, right? So you're making use of your time, which is sort of a beautiful thing, by the way. I want you to know this, right? You're not just sitting back and lay back and relax, which can be very dangerous, by the way. It is very good for mental health in terms of, being active and all of that, which is awesome. Tell me about the book. I want you to speak. Obviously, tell us about the book. Take it, whatever way that works for you, the motivation behind it. Personally, for me, I'm curious to know why you've chosen that title, and I'm going to let you share the title with the viewers, because keep in mind, I have social work background, and so I see every challenge as an opportunity, and I'm not challenging you here in any shape or form, but for curiosity, I want you to share the title of the book, and I want you to share with us as to why you've chosen that title. Take it away.
Okay. Before I get into the book, I just want to touch on one more piece. After I left New York, when I moved to Florida. When I moved to Florida, actually, I became a little bored. So what I did, I actually created a company, and a consultant company, and I had contract from a company that had many contracts. So I was working from home as a consultant, choosing my own hours, my own days, and things like that. That kept me occupied. Then later on, I had my great granddaughter came to live with me, and I had to take her to school and help her with her homework and things like that. And so what I decided, I actually just hung up on my business and started to take care of the family. One of the things that I always loved was writing. So that's when I said, okay, now I have the opportunity to fulfill that part of my hobby that I love. So I started with my first book, which is called Life in British Guiana, son of an Indo-Guyanese. And here is a copy of that. So I started with that. I started to do research on my ancestors and things like that. So that book carried a lot of something similar to my book the last one that I wrote, but has a lot of personal stories. So, and the pictures, some of the pictures and things like that was copyrighted. So I couldn't publish that for the public. So I did it as private. So after that, while I was doing research for my family, I actually found a lot of fascinating stories about the Indian immigrants and their descendants. So that's what prompted me to write this other book, Across the Ocean in Search of Lost Love. What I did, I took all those stories that I found and put it together as one story. So I had to put this book as fiction, because although the story are accurate, yes, and I use some other names rather than I use fictitious names and things like that. So that has more like the immigrants and their descendants. So now let's come to the real book. This
Yes. Mm-hmm.
life is more than a struggle. You know, while sitting down, you know, because now I have the time, I start to reflect back on my life back in Guyana. And I had, you know, I want my children and the younger generation to learn a little bit our life during the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and during that period of time in Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to do my autobiography, which tells everything about life during that period. That period. So, and it's not only a book about my life; it's an inspirational story that shows that you can achieve anything if you want in life, as I did. I started from nowhere, started from cutting sugarcane, ending up in a big computer company, and get a lot of certificates, went to school, and you can achieve it. You can achieve it no matter how hard it is. Once you have that determination and you work toward it, you will achieve your goals.
Yes, so let me pause you for a second. So you brought up an excellent point there. I like what you said there. You have said it so perfectly. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying to you here. And so why that title though? Because you've said it so nicely that no matter how tough things can be, you know, people can do it. But the book you mentioned about, you know, life, you know, is more than a struggle, so to speak. But that's not what you just said. And again, I'm not challenging you, but I want to hear from you because obviously you've chosen that title for a reason, right? So take it away and share with us the reason behind it. Go ahead.
Right. Life is more than a struggle. Actually, it's the title itself tells what the book is about. It tells you about the struggle that we went through. The story it starts from our ancestors. It starts with their journey, the recruitment, their journey, what they actually went through in the sugar industry until their contract was over. I talk a little bit about the lodges and life during that period. I talk a little bit about the village that I born, which was a mixture of most Indian and blacks, African people. And the African was actually, they were actually descendants of slaves that was working in the sugar estate before the Indian immigrants came in. So after their contract was over, they end up in Farish. We end up in Farish, our ancestors. And we grew up in harmony there. And that's not the only struggle. Descendants, as we grew up with from Indian immigrants, descendants, during that period of time, life was really tough. Scarcity, you don't have enough food. You have to find ways of surviving. A lot of people do farming. They do cattle. They start to get cattle. They sell their vegetables in the market. And during that time, even people were selling milk and things like that, and try to survive. And as I said, I grew up in a large family. At that time, I am the third of the family. As a young boy, I started to work in the farm. I started to work in the rice field. You know, I started in the rice field when there was oxen that plowed the rice field. So, and there was a cow cart that was during that time when the actually plow was made of wood, and you know, and when they used to like mash the rice to separate it from the paddy, the straw, they had the oxen that goes around in this pole that actually until the rice separate, and they have this pitchfork and turn it all the time. I had the opportunity at 5 years old, was sitting on that pole on top. It's like a fork stick with 3 prongs. And I sit there and I had to hit the oxen to move around. And, you know, those were some of the days. I managed to go into the low G's. I witnessed those low G's, how they were. I talk, and everything here that I'm mentioning is in my book. And all different ways how we have to survive, from cutting rice to like I mentioned about the farm, doing all sort of work to get income. I used to fetch a basket on my head. 1 mile down from the public road, we used to live 1 mile down inside, mostly in a farm area. So I used to fetch that basket and take it to the public road to get transportation to go to Portmore Market to sell. While I was going to high school during that period of time. So that's where the life is in a struggle came in. But people, although life was so tough, people live like family. Everybody there, they live like family. They watch out for each other. And as you mentioned, we don't actually call people by their name. Everybody's uncle, auntie, you know. Once you're older, and yes, those same neighbors and the villagers, if you do something wrong, they trash your skin. And you go tell your parents, you get more. So that's how those days were, you know. So we didn't have running water. We had to fetch water from the one of the street called Kitten Dam, where the Kanji Creek water used to come there. That's where we used to get water to drink and wash. Then later on, they bring in a well they call Big Well for the entire village. We used to line up with buckets, fetch those buckets in our head to get water, you know. And that everything, I went into details in my book with everything that I'm telling you here. And so that's where the title comes, Life is More Than a Struggle. And, you know, it speaks for itself here.
And along that line, just before we continue, have you visited Guyana recently at all, or you've kind of just watching things from a distance?
And I'm glad you bring up that. I went back in 1992.
You mean that was the most recent time?
That's the last time, only time.
Oh, wow. Of course. Wow.
Yeah. Because when I left Guyana, there was nothing like drugs. There was nothing you can leave your door open. You walk anywhere. You know, nobody bothered you. I used to go see the movies, you know, Yolanda, Apollo, Luke Mahal, and those nighttime. 12 o'clock night, I used to ride my bicycle, come home, and things like that. Nobody bother you. You never hear about drugs. And when I went back, what I noticed there with robbery and drugs and all of that, I said, no, this is not the Guyana that I left. And I decided I'm not going to go. Well, right now I want to go because all the changes and things like that, you know. And I wanted to go take my family because my grandkids, them, my kids came, they were very, very small. They don't remember Guyana. And my grandkids, them, they wanted to see where I was born. You know, my eldest son went and he loved it. He loved Guyana. So I want to go there, you know, see Guyana again, because I followed all the political thing and everything that goes on. I followed all. I'm a Guyanese by blood, so I still consider myself as a Guyanese, and I'm interested in everything that's going on there. So I wanted to go there. I wanted to go back and see for myself again after so many years.
For sure. So, I mean, you invested your time and your knowledge, you put it into books, and your most recent one that you talk about, obviously, looks like you really invested in it. What is it that you hope for in terms of the readers, people who will be buying it, reading it, and all of that? What's the hope you have for them? Like, are you hoping that they will read and and learn something in terms of history wise? Are you hoping that they will learn and realize, hey, you know what, I have it better now than my, than the older generation? Anything along that line?
Yes, it has, as I said, it started with our ancestors, the recruitment, their journey, and their, where they used to live and the condition and things like that. And apart from that, it's also is an inspirational book. It inspires you that no matter, as I said, no matter what you went through in life, you can do better. I have a few chapters in different area in the whole Barbies area, like Portland Market and the entire. I describe some of the markets and some of the things, the estate. I describe that. I describe one of the things that I mentioned about the train. During that period, there were trains. You have the trains. I traveled in the train. I have a chapter of that and describe it. I went to East Coast. I mentioned about Enterprise, the village that I went there, and I describe a little bit about that journey. I describe about the Turani, the boat. Things like that. I describe about the fishing, the different ways we used to catch fish, crabs, and things like that, the seashore as well as the freshwater fish and things like that. I described that. I described the rice industry, the sugar industry. Actually, I have a chapter there about the calabash, which we used to use.
Yeah.
I have a chapter how
I remember that. We just
how you actually make that calabash. And I have a picture in my book about the calabash tree with the calabash in it anyway, because he used that for both the utensils and as well as drinking water, which keeps very, very cool. I have a chapter about that. I have a chapter about life in the farm, how we used to the farm, how we used to do. I have chapters about my high school life, describe some of the things that went in. And again, to make it not too boring, I have a chapter about my teenage life. So, I was a teenager one day. We had teenage life that you do things. You do things that you regret now, but hey, those were, you live as a teenager. I have a chapter about, falling in love and, things like that. I mean, by the way, I'm not too sure how many people. I married my wife for 58 years. And I have the same wife,
for 58 years.
For 58 years. And
that's good.
We grew up together, so we knew each other before that. During our time, when it's not like the American lifestyle or the Canadian lifestyle. It's if there are problems, you try to mend it. You don't run to leave and go to your parents or whatever. You work it out. And you gotta answer. I don't drink. I don't smoke. By the way, so I don't go to too many parties and things like that. You go to some social events here and there, but you don't go and flirt around and do all sort of nonsense. But before we go forward, I don't know if you want to take a pause, or before we go forward, I want to acknowledge a few people that actually give me some information or help me, with writing these books. So
awesome. Yeah, for sure. So what we'll do, we'll do that after a quick musical break. So we'll kind of play a quick music piece, and then you can hammer out all the pieces. I'm glad that you are taking, the opportunity to do that, because it's so important for us to acknowledge people who help us along the way, right? And so that's a beautiful thing you're doing here, because if you didn't ask to do that, I would have asked you, because that's important. So that's awesome. So hang in there for now. But before we get to the musical piece, I also want to acknowledge a few people who are watching right now. I want to give a special hello to Mahendra. Thank you, sir. I hope that you and your family, including the kids, I hope they're doing well. Manika, thank you so much for taking a sneak peek. We really appreciate you folks. Deo Paul, a good friend of mine from New York City. We grew up together in the same village. We attended Tagore School, Tagore Memorial Secondary School to be specific. A friend of mine from Minnesota watching, Umesh, Raman. Thank you for taking a sneak peek there. And I'm not sure how come we have Ken watching here. I thought you had your show going on, Ken, unless I'm mistaken the time here. But thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do. It was nice to connect with you when you visit Canada. That was a beautiful thing. And obviously I can't see everybody, depending what screen I'm looking at, but do know we appreciate all of you. Do know as well that the Dr. Narine Dat Show is very different than the Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. This is a safe space for positive energy only. So if you're looking for a positive space, if you're looking for a safe space rather for positive energy, this is a space. If you're looking for an opportunity to vent because you're having a bad day or somebody's bothering you and you want to let it out, this is not a space for it. So we're going to take a quick musical break.
Before you go,
go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
If anybody have any question, they can type it in and you can read it out to me, and I'll willingly answer their question, because I know quite a few people may have questions, and I'm willing to answer the questions that they have. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And so Uncle Harry was saying, if you're one of those people who are open to ask questions and so forth, do take the opportunity to do that. If you're more behind the scene kind of person, that's okay too. But any kind of question while we have him on here, that's a beautiful thing. Let's take think about that, by the way. So we're going to take a quick musical break. And these music, they're all copyright free, meaning that, nobody has a copyright to them. So that's one of the reasons you're hearing these kinds of music. We don't randomly play music anymore. It doesn't work out well in the long run.
लगता है कोई और गली जाने लगे हो, ख्वाब जो देखे हम दोनों ने मिलके, धीरे धीरे क्यों दफनाने लगे हो, करना तू और बर्बाद छड़ दे, रोंदे आता लेना स्वाद छड़ दे, जे सब प्यार लई है न तरसाओगे, बड़ा पछताओगे, बड़ा पछताओगे, मुझे छोड़ कर जो तुम जाओगे, बड़ा पछताओगे, बड़ा पछताओगे।
So I'm going to pause that music. We just want to give ourselves a little bit of a break, right? So we can breathe. We can just breathe and pause a little bit. That's okay, right? We don't have to keep going for the whole 2 hours. So Uncle Harry, we have a very unique question here from Ken Rampasad. Very, very good question. And what he's asking here, earlier you mentioned that you have been with your wife, if I heard you correctly, you've been with your wife for 58 years. That's a long time. A lot of times a relationship doesn't last more than 58 days, Here in Canada, the divorce rate is more than 50%, believe it or not. A lot of people still stay in relationship because they have not a choice. They are in the relationship, but they're not happy people. So the question is, what kept you in a relationship so long? And I guess so first of all, take your time and respond because people are watching and will be watching or listening even after when we're done here. Because ideally, when two people, right, get together and want to start a relationship, the hope is to continue on for a long time, right? And but not everybody can make it. So take it away, share with us, what made it work for you, 50 years and going.
Yes, I mean, that's a good question. I grew up in the old timers day. When in fact I knew my wife before I get married to her. I mean, we grew up in the same village around the same area, so we knew each other from actually childhood. And when we get married, I always said one thing: I will marry somebody for life. If there are problems, we'll work it out. We'll have to work it out, and rather than escalating it. And the two of us, my wife and myself, we have that very understanding. We knew each other, low point, high point, and we work around things. I mean, we hardly have any quarrel, but in all marriages, you may have disputes, and you work it out. And that's what keeps us going. My wife is not one of the murder type of girls that, as soon as something happens, you get up and walk out and see somebody else and get married. She's not a type like that. Once you have that understanding, it will work out. And as I said, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I hardly goes to the only parties I go, like socialize, family parties and things like that. I don't go flirt around anyway. And that's very essential in a marriage. Both sides have to try to, you marry somebody and that's for life. So you stick with that person, whether it's bad or good. But thank God I didn't have any problem. We had 3 children. They all grew up and they actually grew up with the same way we grew up, because you instill that into them. And not only with the culture, but you grew up in a life where it was hard. So you wanted them to make something better for their life also. And thank God they are all doing good. Me and my wife work together. We still live like Guyana. We live like with our children. We live like same thing, like we're in the same house. Although each one of them has their own house and own family, we still live the same. We do things together. And that's very important, to keep the family together. And, that's even I have my grandkids. They all do the same thing like they follow it. And they try to advance themselves. Once you set that example there, and you and your wife both, once you set that example there, they will follow you, and you have to encourage them. My wife was an integral part of that. She helps to coach the kid into that way. In religion, she prays every morning, things like that, and you teach your children that way. And you lead them the right track. So I always tell people my wife is a old timers. These old timers lady, they're not that modern like the modern girls. They feel that they will have to take care of the house and the kids, and that's very important too. I mean, I know when you're abroad, your wife will have to work because of financial reason and things like that. But thank God I was doing good. So my wife had the time to take care for the kids. You know, she cooked for them, make sure that when they come from school, they have somebody there to watch them and help them out. And that's what important in life. The most important thing, you don't go float around all over the place. You're married for life, and you think about that. That's what it is, and you stick to that, and you will have a happy marriage life.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I have a couple follow-up questions here, and we're going to get into that. But I also want to respond to what you have just said, because we have the newer generation watching and all of that. We have a lot of things happening in Guyana and elsewhere. You are from a different era, obviously, and you've mentioned some very important pieces in terms of, you don't drink, you don't smoke, all of that. And we're not condemning anybody who's smoking and drinking here. But it looks like you have a decent life. You mentioned about, solving problems, when things come up and all of that, right? But I want to mention this one piece, and this is more for the audience, for the newer generation, and the people who don't have those problem-solving skills. I'm talking about, situation, marriage, where there are abuse and issues and things of that sort. Because as we speak, I think recently there was a lady that got killed by her husband and things of that sort. As much as Uncle Harry was lucky, or still is, to be in a good relationship, for 58 years in counting, I just want to add this one piece. If for some reason you are not as lucky as Uncle Harry, and you are in an abusive relationship where you cannot take it anymore, don't feel stuck there, right? And it's easy for me to say, because sometimes people don't have any other choice and things of that sort. But if it's not working out and you try several different things, it's probably sometimes it's not a bad thing to go your separate ways, based on stats, based on what we're seeing as well too. It is very fortunate and very good. It's a good story rather. What we have just heard from Uncle Harry, right? But keep in mind, Uncle Harry's from the whole, not condemning anything here, but it's I guess what I'm trying to say here. Things have changed, right? As Uncle Harry mentioned, people do things differently. Uncle Harry mentioned about the commitment, and I believe Mahendra was mentioning about the trust and all of that, Mahendra, which really connect with what Uncle Harry said here, which is good. There are a couple questions that people are asking here too, and I think one is related to more overall situation life. And I believe you answered this question already, but maybe if you want to add to it. Somebody's asking here, or Monica to be specific, she's basically asking, what advice do you have, for the younger generation? I know I can ask it earlier, but if you want to add anything to it, that would be good too.
Well,
in a general way, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, the younger generation is a different era than when we started. You know that.
Yeah.
And you're right. But they still will have to, both sides, the man and the woman, when they get married, they have to think that, hey, I personally feel this way, that when you get married, you're married for life. You try to work out what problems you have. And as you said, most of the time, you may not be able to work it out. Like you have abusive husband, which I was never abusive. You have we
have to talk to the wife to confirm that. I'm just joking.
Yeah, you can confirm. You can confirm that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
She will be here for my lifetime. But anyway, yes, that's one of the things. There's some abuses that goes on in the house, and I will never ask people to tolerate that abuse. If you feel that your life is in danger, you run. It's not like our days, but you run, get a better life. And that same thing goes to the wife also. you got to try to work out things. And if things doesn't work out, yes, then you know, I wouldn't force you to be in that relationship, because I know a lot of men. I mean, I used to go to, when I was younger, I used to go to the bar once in a while with guys. While they're drinking, I used to take a little bit soda or whatever, juice or whatever. And I used to enjoy when they get drunk. I said, if I was drinking, that's the way I would have act. Then you feel, then you know what liquor can do sometimes. But again, as I said, you know, you try to make things work, and if it doesn't work, then you know, and you got to watch. You have children too.
Yeah,
your children, you can't set a bad example for them, because they will see what you do, and a lot of them end up the same way, doing the same lifestyle. So that's one of the things also that people got to consider in a relationship. Yeah. And I will end there.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And so another question regarding the book, you mentioned earlier about, you know, the struggles and all of that in the book. So somebody, one of the viewers here, Mahendra, is asking if you have any sort of you know, more kind of memorable moment, but more to the positive side of things. Do you have any of that in the book? That's what the question is.
Well, the book have a lot of memories there.
Okay, good.
It's all full of memories. I mean,
good.
And you know, all the chapters. I touch a little bit on it, but I didn't go into any details. But it takes you, as I said, from the journey from the 40s to present day. So there are a lot of memories in there that when you read this book, you will learn about, you know, from those days to present day. And that has, you know, it's my autobiography. It has my life there. From the days in Guyana to, I have great grands. I have a few great grands. I have actually a great grand who she's going to be 18 years. So you know, I'm also setting example to them, not only my children and my grandchildren. I'm trying to set example to all of them, and that's what people should focus, not on the immediate. Try to focus on the future, and try to you know, live a good life with your spouse. And as I said, both ways, man and wife. Okay, awesome. I end with that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that. So my dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who just tuned in here, you're watching and listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. We are joined by Uncle Harry, a Guyanese born and raised in Berbice, Guyana. I also want to remind you that next Sunday we have a Grammy Award winner will be joining us here. You do not want to miss that interview. Same time, 6 p.m. Eastern, Ontario, New York time. Grammy Award winner. Obviously, you will see our flyer, poster, and so forth. But it's going to be a really good one to watch. So, Uncle Harry, as you look back at your own, you know, at your own life, your own journey, let's say you have that privilege and opportunity, right, to relive your life again. Will you change anything at all, or you'll live the same life you've had, knowing what you know?
I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything. And as I said, my life and my book is an inspirational book. And, you know, I mean, our life was tough. We live happily. Everybody live happily. Although you didn't have all those essentials, you know, you live happy. I'll tell you that. There are hard times. You overcome it. But before we go, I just want to acknowledge a few persons, as I said.
Yeah. Take your time and do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me when you're ready for that.
Yeah, you go ahead. Take your time and acknowledge folks who may have helped you along the way, whether that be specifically towards the book or otherwise.
Well, I do have a chapter in my book about talents. some of the talented people that came from my village and surrounding area. And I did talk to all of them before I actually put their story in my book. And there are a few cricketers that came from our village actually, and I would like to acknowledge the Chattergun brothers. They grew up actually in the same street that I grew up, 3-4 houses from me, and they all make it in the West Indies team and become captains and things like that. They're 3 brothers, and they're a very poor family, by the way. They made it very hard. I grew up with their grandmother, grandparents, and all of them. But they did make it into the world of fame. Also, a guy named Orvin Mangru. He's another cricketer who made it. I have this other guy, Basil Rajkumar, his Harry Paul. He made it. He actually made it also in the cricketing field. I must thank his wife because he passed away. His wife, Rose. I thought I saw you went to Rose grandkids' wedding in New York once. Rose Harcharan. I thought I saw that.
Yeah. So I did went to a wedding in New York about 2 years ago. I'm not sure if you're referring to the same thing.
Yeah, it's Rose Harcharan. She actually gave me information about husband career in cricketing, and I said I did mention Orwin Mangru. I have a lot of musical talents here. Like a guy, Terry Gajraj, he actually gave me a little bit about his life growing up and become a singer, where he started and to where he is right now. I have a little bit about the first singer in the Burbis area, Nesbit Changur. I don't know if anybody knew about that guy, but he was the first well-known singer. He's from actually Firish. And he sang that song during the 1964 riot that tried to unite the nation. Gitanjali Rajna. Also, I saw her. You interviewed her also. I mentioned about her.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
I mentioned about her in this book also. Zalil Bakas, another villagers and upcoming good talents. I mentioned Farouk or Firishman. Farouk or Firishman also, he's doing a great job. I mentioned all of these people I interviewed actually, by the way. And Farouk also grew up in a very poor family, but he advanced himself. He advanced himself there. I mentioned Palidas, who is a good friend of mine. He's a singer. I had some government people in the government and social work and things like that. I wouldn't mention all of them, but I just want to mention Leon mother, Girl Susaran. She actually grew up in the same block where I grew up. We went to school together. I actually attended her wedding.
Wow.
When I was a young boy, I wasn't married at that time. And she'll tell you that's the first time my friend gave me liquor to drink. And I drank and I danced at her wedding. And to this day, I feel I am like kind of, feel so embarrassed that I never danced back at a wedding. And I told her about this story. Leon, her son, is doing a great job in blogging and things like that. And he has a lot of, he advertised a lot of businesses and things like that. So I mentioned another villager, a guy named Jairam Bandu, he came from a poor family in the village also. And he ended up being he worked his way up to a personal manager in Albion Estate. You know, I want to say thanks to him also because he actually gave me some information about his career. And also I want to mention a few authors like Basio Mangru. Actually, Basio Mangru is my wife, Mamu. He wrote a lot of books about the Indian history. He was the first person that graduated with Indian history from the University of Guyana. Mm. And, you know, he wrote quite a few books in that. And another villager is Joseph Passad. He also is an author. And my uncle, actually, he wrote quite a few books also. Lloyd Armogan is another villager. Deshmani also, Shanti. She lives in England now. She does a lot of good drawing with different portraits. She's an author also, published a few books. And a few other people here. I hope I wouldn't forget to mention my friend across the street from where I live, Maurice Sankar. He's a guy from your village area. He helps me do the proofwriting and things like that, and some corrections on my grammar and things like that on my book, on all my book, in fact. So I must say thanks to him also. I must also say thanks to my grandchildren for the encouragement to write this book. Especially I'll mention my great-granddaughter who inspired me to write this book, because being with her after my retirement, taking her to school, taking her to the park, and you know, doing things with her, teaching them how to ride bicycles and things. It brought me back to visualize my younger days. So I want to say her name is Maya Rickheeram. So she inspired me also to write this book, and apart from my children. All right, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, by the way, for taking this time to acknowledge those folks. Speaking of that, so I'm assuming then, so you know Rose then, Rose
Yes,
Harichan?
yes.
And the reason, sorry, go ahead.
Her husband was living in the same block where I used to live.
So that's the wedding that the grandson, the wedding of the grandson, is that the wedding you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So Ganesh and Casey Nat. Yeah,
Ganesh,
so yeah.
Not cutting you, Ganesh is a singer too.
Yeah. So that's right. So I went to that wedding, and Ganesh and I, we know each other through this whole singing thing. So yeah. So now it's all coming together.
Yeah, and I know Ganesh parents. You know, as a young boy, they grew up among us also. So both sides of the family, Ganesh as well as Rose and her husband.
Okay, good, awesome. And so we have a few minutes left. We'll kind of, I have a couple more things for you, and then we're going to wrap it up. Obviously, you are retired now, and that reminds me of my dad, who is 80 years old. I remember when he retired, he told me that was the hardest thing for him to do to retire, because he always likes to keep himself busy and do things and all of that. And he is, by the way, he wakes up early in the morning, he exercises, he still drives, he does the grocery, he does it all, he cooks, he do all of these things. My question to you, and you don't have to get into your personal thing per se, but how do you keep yourself busy being a person who is retired? What are some things that you do to really make life meaningful for you?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I wanted to touch on that also. Retired in Florida, where I live. I am living the life as I used to live in Guyana. The climate is good. I came from a farming area. I have a lot of fruit tree here. You know, like mangoes, like sapodillas, things like that. I have lychees. I have sugar apple. I have all different kind of fruits growing. And, I keep myself busy doing that. I do riding my bicycle. I do walking. We have beautiful waterfalls on our trail that I walk here. You walk in the evening. You stand by the waterfalls there. You have the ponds and lakes where you have the ducks and birds and things there. The streets are lined with flowers because they planted flowers on the street side. We do have a huge lake here with a boardwalk where you can go there and relax and look at the sunset. I enjoy that, when it sets in the evening. So I keep myself busy with that, and I also keep myself busy with writing, which I love. I am in another book called Finding Lost Love, which I almost complete. It's a sequel from one of my books. The second book that I wrote, Across the Ocean in Search of Lost Love. And this one is a continuation, Finding Lost Love. This has to deal with the children and things like that. So, and he has to deal with cultural marriage and things like that in modern days. So that those are the things that keep me active. I plant my garden. I do things, as I said, I do walking and riding my bike. And I'm a person who's an all-rounder. I took care of everything in my house, like from plumbing to carpentry to masonry to everything. I can do anything. So if anything, if there's anything has to be done there, I don't call plumber or whatever. I do everything myself because I can do it. The first house that I built in Guyana, I actually built it myself.
Your first house in Guyana?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, really?
I built it myself, and, I do have that skill. Learned it from my father. My father was an all-rounder. And I became an all-rounder, especially, go into the tech field, and you learn a lot of things technically. But I do things. I normally do everything around myself. And my kid, my son, my small son, he's doing better than me. If I have a problem, I said, come over, and he will assist me. So he took after me also. As I said, I took after my father. So that's what keeps me busy.
Excellent. That's awesome.
And again,
I don't want to be nosy here, but I want to ask you this one question. You've been with your wife for 58 years. Was it an arranged marriage, or did you guys fall in love as a young couple?
It wasn't an arranged marriage.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay. No, that's okay. You don't have to get into details.
No. I'll just give you a gist of it.
Yeah.
I have a chapter there how I met her.
Yep.
And how we actually were kids, puppy love, things like that. And we grew into that. And I have a chapter there to explain the whole thing about that our affairs and things like that. So, but we knew each other, and that's what helps also in that marriage, because we knew each other from childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. I always believe that things happen for a reason. I don't think it's a coincidence. You were not scheduled to be on tonight, right? We had different plans and whatnot, but it works out so perfectly, and I appreciate your flexibility and for us to make it work, which is awesome. We are going to connect obviously afterwards and whatnot, but I'm now giving you the opportunity to say any last minute thing that comes to mind, anything else you would like to say before we wrap it up. But do know we appreciate you. We wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for sharing your story on the Dr. Narine Dat Show. Thank you for engaging so nicely. You've done really, really well. And I'm sure that, your story, will inspire, people, which is a beautiful thing. Take it away, any last minute thing. This is
Yeah,
your opportunity.
and thank you for bring me on in your show. Um, I must thank all the viewers that is viewing your show. And if you need a copy of my book, Life is More Than a Struggle, you can get it on Amazon. Um, for those who do not have Amazon account, I can order it from them for them, and they can get it within 2 days. And also in Canada, because as you know, you get a copy.
Yeah.
It is a little bit. It's $14.99 in United States, but in Canada, it's actually around 26 Canadian currency.
Because of the exchange. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. But again, if somebody does not have Amazon account, I can order the book for them, and I have a few copies here. I can order it for them through Amazon. They'll get it within 2 days. All right, and again, thank everyone for viewing, and thank all the people that actually helped me writing this book, and I must also thank my family for encouraging me and to be patient with me while I'm doing my writing. And you know, now my what I'm doing, I'm spending time with my great grands. All my grandchildren, they get big. They all have careers now.
Mhm.
So the great grands are the one that I spend time with, and I enjoyed it while writing. All right, and thanks again.
Amazing. So stay right there for now. My dear fellow listeners and viewers, as we are officially approaching the end of the Dr. Narine Dat Show, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to us here tonight. On behalf of myself and our guest here tonight, Uncle Harry, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even better tomorrow. And don't forget to tune in to us again next week, Sunday, where we are going to have a Grammy Award winner. You do not want to miss it. We are going to see you next time.